Imagine waking up one morning, looking out at your own property, and realizing an entire neighborhood has been built on it without your permission. 96 homes, streets, sidewalks, mailboxes, a whole HOA community constructed right on land that legally belongs to you. Sounds impossible, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And trust me, the ending is even crazier than the beginning. It all started 2 years ago when I inherited a 14-acre plot from my grandfather. The land wasn't anything special, just a quiet stretch of fields with a small wooded area and a creek running along the back. But to me, it was sentimental. It was family history. And most importantly, it was mine. So imagine my confusion when, 3 months after inheriting it, I drove by and saw heavy machinery carving up the dirt, bulldozers, excavators, dump trucks. At first, I thought it was a county project. I even waved at a guy in a reflective vest who looked at me like I was trespassing on their job site. When I asked what was going on, the foreman barely glanced at me. "Subdivision construction," he said. Oh, development. We're on a tight schedule," I remember blinking. "Subdivision construction, on whose land?" He pointed at his clipboard. "This parcel." The clipboard said my parcel. At first, I honestly thought it was a mistake, a mix-up with the county records, so I called the developer. They brushed me off. I called they told me the land had been purchased legally. I checked the public records myself, and sure enough, there was a deed on file, one I had never signed, notarized, or even seen before. Someone had filed a forged deed transferring my land to the development company. I contacted the sheriff. I contacted the county clerk. I contacted a lawyer. Each one told me basically the same thing: let the legal process take its course. But here's the problem: legal processes take time. And while time passed, the HOA kept building, foundation after foundation, frame after frame, roof after roof. They were building an entire community on land they didn't rightfully own. And that's when I made the decision that shocked everyone who later heard this story. I didn't try to stop them. I didn't file for an injunction. I didn't block the entrances or protest. I let them finish every single one of those 96 houses. Why? Because I knew something they didn't know. And when I tell you, it changed everything, I mean everything. Most people think the smartest move is to fight immediately, to storm in, slam documents on desks, and shout, "This is my land." But here's the truth. Sometimes the strongest power move is silence. And the HOA had no idea the quiet guy watching from the sidelines was about to own their entire development houses, streets, and all by letting them dig their own grave. I knew from day one they were building illegally. I knew the deed they filed was forged. And I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that once they finished construction, I would have leverage so massive it would make their entire legal team choke. My lawyer, an older guy named Franklin, was the only one I confided in. And when I told him I planned to let them build the whole community before taking action, he nearly dropped his coffee. "You want them to finish?" he asked. "Finish 96 houses on your land?" "Exactly," I said. "That's insane." "Or genius," I countered. He rubbed his forehead. "You realize the longer we wait, the more complicated this becomes?" "That's the point. The more they build, the more they invest. The more they invest, the more they owe when the truth comes out." Franklin stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, a grin appeared. "You're playing a long game they can't win." So I documented everything. Every truck entering the site, every home frame going up, every city permit they filed using a forged deed. I kept records, photos, timestamps, emails, everything. I wasn't stopping them, I was collecting ammunition. Meanwhile, the HOA board kept bragging publicly about their new community. Evergreen Hills, grand opening dates were announced. Buyers were already touring model homes. They even invited me to an open house event. The audacity would have been hilarious if it wasn't so infuriating. I walked through a finished model home, acting like just another prospective buyer, while my phone recorded the entire tour. "Welcome to Evergreen Hills," the realtor said proudly. "These homes sit on land we acquired last year." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing, if only they knew. By the time the final home was completed, house number 96, I had everything ready. Franklin had drafted the legal filings. I had the original deed from my grandfather, and the forged deed had been verified by a forensic document examiner as a 100% fake. This show I had built an entire neighborhood on a lie, and now it was time for me to walk into court and pull the real deed out of my briefcase. If you've ever seen a moment where an entire room goes silent, truly silent, you know it's because something big just dropped. And when I stepped into that courtroom holding the original deed to all 14 acres, the silence hit like a shockwave. The HOA had come prepared for a routine hearing. They had no idea I was about to flip their entire world upside down in a single motion. The courtroom wasn't packed, but it felt crowded with tension. On one side sat the HOA board members, dressed in their matching blazers like they were attending a fancy brunch instead of a legal showdown. Next to them, their attorneys whispered confidently, shuffling neatly trimmed stacks of papers. On my side, it was just me and Franklin, no entourage, no fear. Just two people holding the truth they tried to bury. When the judge entered, everyone rose. He was a serious-looking man with wire-framed glasses and the kind of expression that could make even the bravest person rethink every life decision they'd ever made. The case started normally enough. The HOA's attorney confidently declared they had full legal rights to the land and presented their forged deed like it was gospel. The judge nodded politely, flipping through the pages. Then he looked at me. "Mr. Harris, do you contest the validity of this deed?" Franklin stood. "Your Honor," he said, "we do more than contest it. We have evidence that the deed presented by the HOA is a forgery." Instantly, the room buzzed. The HOA president shot upright in her chair, whispering aggressively to her lawyer. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out the original deed, my grandfather's deed, the real deed. The one the county clerk confirmed was still legally active because no lawful transfer had ever occurred. Franklin handed it to the bailiff, who carried it to the judge. The judge studied it, eyebrows raising slightly. Then he compared it to the HOA's document. His expression changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. He looked up. "This signature," he said, pointing to the HOA's deed, "is not notarized properly, and the dates, they don't match county records," the HOA attorney stammered. "There must be a clerical," the judge held up a hand. "This is not a clerical error," his tone sharpened. "This is fraud." You could practically hear the oxygen leave the HOA's side of the courtroom. Then came the moment I had waited nearly 2 years for. The judge leaned forward and said the words that sealed their fate. "Based on the evidence, I rule that the land belongs unequivocally to Mr. Harris." And just like that, every house they built was suddenly sitting on my property again. The moment the judge ruled in my favor, it felt like the floor dropped out from under the HOA board. You could see it in their eyes, the realization that everything they had built, every house they had sold, every dollar they had invested, all of it now sat on land they did not own. And if they didn't own the land, they didn't own the houses either, not legally, not structurally, not financially, nothing. The HOA president stood so fast her chair screeched across the floor. "This is outrageous," she barked, pointing at me. "He can't just take 96 homes." The judge fixed her with a look that could freeze lava. "Ma'am, he isn't taking anything. The homes were built on land he already owned." Her attorney tugged her back down before she could dig the hole any deeper. When the hearing ended, Franklin and I walked out calmly. The HOA board scrambled behind us, shouting questions, demands, even threats about taking this to the state, but none of it mattered. The court ruling stood. My deed stood. And they now faced a nightmare bigger than they ever imagined. Because the truth was simple. When someone builds on your land without permission, the buildings legally become yours. I now owned 96 brand new homes I didn't ask for. The development company tried to negotiate first. They offered to buy the land retroactively, but at a laughably low price. Then they tried to claim they had acted in good faith, but the forged deed proved otherwise. Next came the homeowners themselves, people who had bought houses genuinely believing everything was legitimate. Most of them were panicked. Some were angry, a few were scared. One man even showed up at my driveway in tears, asking if he was going to lose everything. I didn't blame them. They were victims too. Meanwhile, the HOA board scrambled to maintain control. They sent out mass emails insisting, "Don't panic, this will all be resolved soon." That was a lie, and they knew it. Franklin laid out my options. Option A: force the HOA to buy the land back at full market value plus damages. Option B: evict everyone and sell the homes myself. Option C: negotiate individual land leases at a rate that would make the HOA's head spin. Option D: sue for massive compensation due to fraud. Each option came with power leverage they never expected me to have. But I already knew which option I was going to choose. Because the HOA wasn't getting away with this. Not after forging documents, not after ignoring me, not after treating me like I didn't exist. And what I chose would shake the entire community to its core. Power doesn't always come from shouting, smashing, or fighting. Sometimes the strongest power comes from watching the people who wronged you realize slowly, painfully, that you hold every card. And when that courtroom ruling hit the HOA like a wrecking ball, I knew exactly how to use every ounce of leverage they had foolishly handed me. Most people expected me to evict everyone immediately. Others assumed I'd bulldoze the HOA office just for fun. And believe me, the idea crossed my mind. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted justice in a way that would leave a lasting scar, reminder that greed has a price. Franklin and I sat down, weighed every option, and built the plan. Step 1. Notify every homeowner individually, not through the HOA, not through a board meeting, me, directly. I mailed each household a certified letter explaining the ruling, the forged deed, and the fact that the HOA had illegally built on land they didn't own. I wasn't the villain. I was the guy trying to fix a disaster someone else created. The reactions were mixed. Some thanked me for being transparent, some were terrified. Others wanted to fight back. Until they learned the truth, they had also been victims of the HOA's illegal land grab. Step 2. Offer them the fairest deal possible, one that cut the HOA out completely. Instead of evicting anyone, instead of demanding insane fees, I offered each homeowner a long-term land lease at a reasonable rate, a fraction of what the HOA had planned to charge. Fair, legal, simple, they could keep their homes, their families, their investments, no drama, but the HOA? They didn't get off so easy. Step 3. Sue the HOA board and the development company for fraud, damages, and emotional distress. The forged deed alone was enough to sink them, but combined with the documented construction, the ignored warnings, and the financial harm to homeowners, it was catastrophic. The development company settled quickly. They wanted out before things got worse. But the HOA board, they tried to fight. They lost. Financial penalties, removal from office. Personal liability for fraud, their entire power vanished overnight. In the end, the community dissolved the HOA and formed a new, resident-led association, one that operated legally, respectfully, and without the dictatorship-style nonsense that had gotten them into this mess. And the land, it remained mine. Legally, permanently, every inch of it acknowledged in court and on record. From the moment I watched those bulldozers roll onto my property, I knew this wouldn't end cleanly. But I never expected to walk away owning 96 homes, reshaping an entire neighborhood and exposing the for who they really were. Sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes patience isn't surrender. Sometimes the quietest person in the room delivers the loudest ending. Shocked by how I turned the tables on that HOA. Subscribe now to witness more jaw-dropping real-life stories where the underdog fights back. If this story blew your mind, hit like, and in the comments tell me, how would you react if someone built dozens of homes on your land?